Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Encourage Mindset. This is one I've been really stoked about for a while. We finally got him, ladies and gentlemen. We got Corey on the podcast here. Many people know he has an awesome clothing brand called Wisconsin Clothing that delivers the coolest swag to Wisconsin homeowners. We'll let some of the Midwesterners slide a little bit if they're from Minnesota or Illinois. We'll let that slide. But if you're a diehard cheese fan, Cheesehead, all of the names, all of the terms. You've probably seen his merch, his reels, his Instagrams, all of that stuff. He's going to dive into some of that stuff, but also who he is as an entrepreneur as well. Welcome, Corey. Why don't you talk a little bit about who you are? I know I kind of gave the audience a fun little promo, but kind of who else you are. I know you went to Platteville and did some other things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from a little town called Keeler, Wisconsin. For every Wisconsinite, it's not Kiel, it's Keeler. There's an ER at the end. We're down here in the southwest part of the state. I've been a homer. I've been a Wisconsin guy through and through. You know, a lot of people when they go out of high school that, I want to go do something here. I want to get out of the state. I want to go experience. To me, no, I just loved where I was from. I love community. I love family. I love friends. And wanted to just start my journey in the state I love. So went to Platteville, which is about 15 minutes from where I grew up. Loved my experience there. And once I got out of Platteville, just to be honest, I kind of went on a roller coaster like everybody else, trying to figure out what you wanted to do. When I was in college, I did real estate and insurance. I did that for about 3-4 years. And then I got into the retail space, which ultimately led me down the path that I'm at. But I've always I always wanted to be involved. I have a lot of irons in the fire, be an entrepreneur, and just do what keeps me busy. And that's I'm better when I'm busy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think a lot of people are better when they're busy. And to start from your framework of college, and I think a lot of people can relate, they're very unsure of what the job fields look like post-college.
Yep.
And, you tried and did some things. That's awesome. And that's kind of the terms of entrepreneurship. You take risks. So tell me some things that you've learned along your way of being an entrepreneur.
Well, I think even the start of the retail, I didn't go to school for retail. I didn't go to school for clothing. But I truly believe that when you start, you will have feelings of like, oh man, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I don't really see the vision. But I truly believe if you treat people right, you make relationships, partnerships, and you work really hard, anything's possible. From when I was 21 years old, starting a brand out of to be honest, at the time, my college apartment. I had a lot of moments of insecurity of, is this really what I want to do? Do I really want to get into this? But I think persistence in, knowing what you want to do in life and working hard is truly what makes the train go. Right.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And people might, throw faces and make silly faces that, social media isn't a job, but you know what? The proof is in the pudding. Social media can be a job. It creates millions of jobs, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps small businesses a lot. And talk a little bit about that aspect, because Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels and all of that stuff has kind of became a little bit more popular in the last couple of years. So is the organic play what has been driving Wisconsin Clothing to be so much more successful, or did you find other tactics to be way more successful in the first front of Wisconsin Clothing?
I think the goal, regardless, as a small town kid, before I got into making videos, I was very private. I was never a social media person. I didn't post on there a lot. I kept to myself. And it's a leap. It really is for anyone, especially in a state of like Wisconsin, where, there aren't a lot of people doing this, making these videos. And it's probably because they're being hesitant or something's holding them back, but truly making the leap. And I think the real beauty of what I do is, I get a lot of people that come up to me, even when I'm traveling or doing something, like, oh, I see your videos. Then they talk to me. They're like, oh man, you're exactly like what I see on social. I'm just a genuine person. Whether you like me or not, this is who I am. I don't turn a camera on and change. That's just always what, like I said, I'm not that type of person where, the views matter that much. I'd rather get my point across and what I believe in and what my company believes in. And just make things relatable and fun for everyone in the state of Wisconsin to see. You go to all my pages. I'm not shoving down your throat, hey, buy my clothes. To be honest, you might never see, you might see one post every quarter of me actually promoting our clothes. But to me, I'm trying to create a community of people who love the state as much as I do, and just allow the organics part of selling clothes just kind of happen in the background.
I love that part. That's a really powerful message, because I think a lot of business leaders get that very confused, especially like on LinkedIn or whatever it may be. They'll always be trying to sell their services right away, which, I mean, it sounds like you got the sauce right there, which is, no, I'm going to build a relationship with these people, and I'm going to let the relationship speak for itself if they want to purchase anything or be a part of this community. And that's powerful, and that's marketing.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And even, a lot of people who see my videos or see my face, they don't realize that we have a parent company called WCC Brands, where we actually do all the apparel for a lot of businesses in the state. I'm sitting upstairs of our facility with 30 people. That's all we do all day. And I tell our sales team members, hey, when you're out selling to people, hey, I want to do your clothes. No, be their friend first.
Mm-hmm.
Get to know who they are. Talk like this. Have fun. Because if you could make a friend out of someone and they feel comfortable around you, the selling, that makes it really easy. And honestly, it's the same thing in marketing. It's the same thing in social media. If you make people feel like you're a friendly face, everything else becomes relatively easy.
Totally would agree. Totally agree. And what is kind of some of those things that got you to learn that? I'm sure you've had challenges along the way. So what are some of those that got you to cover those pain points?
I think honestly, it's, my role model of my parents, my dad, he's a talker just like I am. He's been in sales his whole life. He's now retired. I learned a lot from him, where, a lot of people get lost when they're doing marketing, doing social media, and doing this, where, they make it very apparent to the viewer what they want. And I don't want anyone to see my videos and be like, oh gosh, here's Corey again. Or if they see me calling, I'm like, oh God, he's trying to sell me more shirts. I want them to answer the phone like, oh, what, he's going to ask me, how are you doing? What's new in your world? We'll get to that eventually. But I feel like making it way more organic than feel like it's forced is just I think for a lot of companies and people, it's hard to grasp. Because, especially even marketing, like what you guys are doing, and what anyone's doing in the marketing space. I feel like if you make it fun and make it energetic and people, you don't have to be like, hey, I want to sell more roofs and that's got to be your videos. I want to do this. No, you want to make it where you're entertaining, and then those pieces will all fall in place.
Totally agree. I think that's what you are seeing when you post content. That's turning into valuable content. That's turning into more impressions. That's turning into a higher engagement. What is some of the things that you've realized out of creating content that has been so fun? Is it talking about the nature part of Wisconsin, or the sports talk of Wisconsin, or I've seen now you've been posting about the high school sports, because not a lot of people cover that stuff, which is totally crazy.
Yeah. And what's crazy is we have our podcast and we do talk high school sports a lot. And, when I go, I was in Alabama for the Badger game last weekend, and I actually had a couple people come up to me and recognize me. And a lot of them were like, oh my God, I love your high school sports, because no one does that. And we didn't really know that when we started. To me, it's I think the funnest part of what we do is we're, as much as I am a business, I think our goal is, when we do these videos, is we're raising other small businesses that maybe don't have our platform. When I'm doing my top 5 dive bars or top 5 small town videos or anything along those lines, I think that means just as much to their towns as it does to me. Where if I can give them any light, I love that, because I am a small town kid, and I understand a bar in Keiler, Wisconsin might not have 100,000 followers, but if I get to talk about them and people like it and it's viewed across the whole state, that's a win.
Totally agree. Has anybody asked you yet? Because I come from Kaukauna, Wisconsin, which is a huge supper club area in the
Oh,
Fox
hey, and
Valley.
the paper mill.
Yep, and the paper mill. So has anybody asked you yet on a podcast what's your top 3 supper clubs?
I get a couple questions like that, and to be honest, like I think with me making all these videos, don't get me wrong, I haven't been all over the state. There's still a lot of places I still want to go to, but I get a lot of people who aren't from Wisconsin in my DMs asking me where to go. I get that all the time, and I answer all of them. I try to, and so it's really hard to say because there's so many good ones. And I own a supper club, so I'm not going to say that one because I'm not going to be biased. I mean, honestly, for me, it's like there's one in Prairie du Chien called the Black Angus. That's probably one of my favorite ones I've ever been to. They make this. You can watch them make the steaks. They have great bourbon, and the owners. Honestly, the owners make a huge deal to me. When they're great people, and they take care of their communities. So they're one of those people that I love. Ishnala up by the Dells is great. Buckatabbin up on the eastern side is great. I'm really blessed in our area. We have a bunch. Obviously the one Call-In Supper Club that I'm a part of, and then the Village Bar Supper Club. There's just
it's endless.
I could go forever.
That's awesome. That's really cool because that shows you're passionate about what you do. So how did you find that you were passionate about the retail business? Did that start to happen slowly, or did you in a snap of a finger realize, man, selling shirts, building connections, doing this stuff, that's what I'm about. That's Corey.
And to be honest, you know what? I don't even know. And as bad as this might sound, I don't know if that is truly my passion, is selling clothes. But it's something, that I kind of walk, all the dominoes fall, and that's something you end up doing. And, maybe it's not, I didn't grow up my whole life saying I wanted to sell shirts, but it's something that, to me, once I step my foot into something, I give it everything I have. And I want to make sure that I make everyone that supports me proud, including my family, including the followers and communities we have. So I think over time it creates your passion. But like I said, I didn't grow up saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to sell T-shirts when I get up to grow up." But everyone falls into a line of business, and it's what you make of it, right?
Yeah, no, I love that answer. It's what you make of it. I mean, I think a lot of people, when you ask them what they do for a living, none of them expect what they do, but they end up really appreciating it and being grateful they found it because it's created them to have a lifestyle that they want to have. Right?
Exactly. Well, and even like with clothing, it's a super saturated market. Everybody's trying to do it now. Between boutiques, brands like social media brands, even the big boys. I mean, everyone's in front of people trying to sell clothing. And I think our main goal is we're going to try to represent the state the best we can, and then keep prices affordable. I think now we're getting to a day where nothing's cheap. Nothing's not, everything costs money, but I promise we'll never sell a sweatshirt for over $65. I promise we'll never sell a T-shirt for over $25 because that's just not who we are. That's not what Wisconsinites are about.
I say that every time I go into a store. I mean, the fact that you preach that is awesome because, I mean, you go into like a North Face, for example, and it's like $95 for a sweatshirt. And I'm sure if I were to put on a Wisconsin clothing sweatshirt, it would be way more comfortable than the North Face that I'm buying too.
Yeah, and that's why we dove into having our own brand. For the first bunch of years we were a business, we were just screen printing on other brands. That's kind of how we started. And then we eventually folded, and now we do it overseas like everybody else. And we have our own brand. I do all the specs. So yeah, I can positively say we have one of the most comfortable brands. Sure, we don't make the margins they do, but margins, that's all they care about. And I'd rather have people wearing my clothes, and then being able to go have supper and not, be able to go to Ishnala, which, and be able to get salad and have a dessert for their kids. That means more to me than anything.
Yeah. So because you grew up small town, do you feel like you've always had this sense of, I guess I would call it a trait of being humble? Or I'm assuming you probably had some some stories or something like that where you've had to really embrace being more humble and lenient, especially as an entrepreneur. But it
Sure.
sounds like that was built in from your foundation of family.
Mm-hmm. No, I to be honest, I grew up in a family of faith. I grew up in a small town. To me, it doesn't matter if I become the richest man in the world or the most popular person in the world. You're going to get the same person regardless. The guy that grew up in a small town, that's never going to change for me. I think a lot of times you see people change when they get popular or they get people seeing their videos, and it's almost like they get a little cocky or arrogant ness to them. And I'm a family man. I have 2 kids at home. I would never in my wildest dreams give them the idea that that's okay. Because again, I have a bunch of friends in our community here. I want everyone in the world to know that I'm just the same small town kid, and that's never going to change.
I love that answer. So I guess I was going to throw you on a loop on that. So how do you stay focused and goal driven when you see behind the scenes that all these distractions, all these cool things are going on? How do you still stay like, okay, we got it. Next step, next goal, next thing.
To be honest, a lot of it has to deal with even like here, we have a really good team. Like I said, we have 30 people here, and even our management, our leadership, we all keep ourselves in line and in check. And to be honest, I'm just one of those guys. I'm sure a lot of people have said it before, where they're just pencil down on the paper, working hard, and that's just who they are. They're hard workers, and I like to think I fall in that category, right? Every day I come in here and do a lot of the same, but my ethic doesn't change. So I think a lot of it has to deal with that. Obviously there's always going to be outside noise, but I'm just really focused on me and what our business looks like.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Has there been a favorite way to, track your habits? Because I think most people, when they are an entrepreneur or they own a business or several, you have to have like some sort of routine or habits. Is there a way that you track that stuff to make sure you're staying on path of your goals?
I don't think there's any way I track it. A lot of days, I won't lie, it feels like I'm running around with my head cut off. But again, I really flourish in that feeling, where I just have a lot to do and little time to do it. But I think, between having good team members, having people who help, hold you accountable, and even to be able to help do some of the work along those lines, that always helps. But I think for the most part, it's something I've learned, because my wife would tell you I'm not great at it, is just being organized. That's a big key.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about it, and I think it's a key for many people, especially as social media is going to continue to be a factor down the road. But you started as a very introverted person. So what did it feel like when you were doing your first couple of videos? Like, and does it feel a lot easier now? And how did you get, like, was it just keep going, keep trial and error? How did that feel?
Well, and just to be clear, and because if my wife sees this, I am not introverted in any way, shape, or form. I am very outspoken. I talk probably way too much. So to me, it was just the leap of pressing publish or upload.
Okay.
So I really never had a problem talking. I think you're probably realizing that.
Yeah, for sure.
I've never had classes. I've never done anything. I've always hated speech classes in school. I've just always been able to connect and be able to talk. So to me, that kind of came, I don't want to say natural, like it felt natural to be able to get behind a camera and talk. But I think a lot of what I dealt with early was, what am I going to post? I think trying to figure out your lane and because that's kind of how social media works is, you get a niche, right? You're good at. And I think, or that people like watching that stuff that you do. So I think for me, it was more or less finding out what I wanted to actually talk about, what I wanted to make our page about. That was probably the biggest thing for me. Because again, it's, when I first started, I'm like, oh, I want to make all these videos, but like, I do clothes. I can't talk about that every day. So I think really kind of focusing on other aspects of our state and things people find relatable, and kind of learning that was a huge aspect for us.
Do you enjoy the consistency of having to do that, or does it feel like, social media used to be a hobby, now it's feeling like it's an obligation?
To be honest, with like running the business with our other leaders here, and then having a couple other businesses I'm involved in, social media, I don't want to say it's a burden anyway, but I don't know, when I first started I realized how much time it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm setting days away from my schedule to travel to go do videos around the state, like I'm doing tomorrow. We're actually going up to Marshfield area, and we're going to do a bunch of videos tomorrow. So like, I feel like
Are you going to Nuts Deep? You going to Nuts Deep, or
literally
what?
where we're going? Yeah. So, I think for me, it was like more or less becoming organized and finding ways to, because it is easy when I get caught up in a business setting and we're growing and doing this stuff, and I have other irons in the fire where, the one thing that falls off the deep end is the posting. So trying to stay consistent, it's something I need to get better at, but I only have so many hours in the day. So I would say that's probably the one thing, is trying to stay consistent with videos, finding new ways to post without taking more time, having someone help me with editing, doing that kind of stuff, and just staying in the fold of social media. But as I keep getting busier and our business grows, it just gets harder and harder.
The editing process is just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can create a video. I mean, anybody can. It takes like 2 minutes, but the editing is like hours of what people are doing.
For sure. No, and it's crazy. Social media has changed so much where, the least edited videos do the best. The ones where there isn't actually a production team behind it. You see those do really well. And I think even like a lot of businesses lose fact of that, where, they got a cameraman and they're making it really, really like an actual production set. Like that doesn't work anymore. Where people want to see real. They want to see like me filming from my phone, and it takes 8 seconds. They want to see that.
What do you think of AI entering social media? Does that fire you up? Like now this stuff's going to get more fake. Now it's going to get even worse with these edited videos.
For sure. I mean, I think it becomes saturated really quick. I mean, I think it's became something that every viewer is noticing. Like when you see a video like that, it clicks in your head. You know it's not real. Like there's little tactics of each video you can tell, like, okay, that's not real. But I think it's definitely something that diverts people away from the truth in some ways, how people are using it. But I think it also helps out a lot of ways where, like, on Instagram and Facebook, we post a lot of memes and stuff like that. And it's helped us along the way of saving time. So I think AI is definitely a scary thing just overall of what it can do, for any business, but it's definitely a tool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the stuff ChatGPT is turning into like a graphic designer now. It's insane what that thing's doing.
I mean, yeah, we used ChatGPT to make a picture of Bob Uecker eating a burger when they won their 12th game, and it had like 15,000 likes. So that's something I would have never been able to do. It's definitely a tool if it's used the right way.
That's funny. Is there anything else that you want to share on the Encourage Mindset podcast? I appreciate you spending some time with me today to share a lot of insight about who you are and what you've been up to these last couple of years.
I mean, honestly, to me, I feel like when Encourage, just even speaking off the name of what it means, mindset's everything, regardless of what you do. Some people fall into a line of business where they're not happy, and they just stay there. Where I think everyone's mindset needs to be kind of changed a little bit, where, you feel like confident in yourself to be able to take a risk or take a leap, because, you're not sure what can happen. There's so many people in the state of Wisconsin that have taken the leap and have made videos and have done stuff like that. And it's gone really, really well for them. And it's maybe changed their lives. So I feel like taking that leap and having the mindset to be able to do it, and just be okay with whatever results you get, I think that's a huge step. And then to be able to take that in your everyday life, taking on more businesses and taking on more roles. Again, it's something where it's daunting. You look at it and say, oh my God, I ain't not, but it's all about how you think about it. And that's always the goal for me, is to stay positive, energetic, and, we'll figure it out.
Appreciate that. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. It's awesome to see what you're doing. I can't wait to keep following you. Gonna have to have everybody that's watching and listening check out Wisconsin Clothing Company, a truly, truly well-deserving company of anybody's business that is a Wisconsinite.
Yeah, and then anyone listening, if you own a business and you want custom apparel, call me. I could be your guy.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Corey, crushing it. Thanks for coming on once again and sharing your knowledge on Encourage Mindset.
Yep, dude, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.